We all know that Black people have value. Everything that Black people touch turns to gold. We can touch a rock and it has value. Black people mine for gold, it has value. Okay? Black people produce culture, it has value. Everything that Black people touch has value. Our body has value down to the cellular level. Our cells have value.
Hey, family. Welcome to our Reparations Special of the Black Man's Roundtable podcast. Rodney, how's it going, sir?
Yo, bro, I'm above ground. I can't complain today.
Hey, man, look, anytime you can be above ground, there's no reason to complain, right?
No, sir.
You know what I'm doing, brother? I'm scratching and surviving like good times. That's what I do out here in these streets and these suites. And but look, I'm looking very, very forward, man, to this Reparations Special that we have today for the people. You know, we've been trying to do this for a minute now. We've been trying to squeeze this show in probably for about 6 months. It may have even been over 6 months that we've been trying to squeeze this in. But I guess that's a good problem to have because, you know, we are booked all the way through, I think, February or March of next year. But we had to get this in before the end of the year because we know that the special guest that we have on tonight has been putting in the work, brother. And I am eager for her to give the people a report, and hopefully people all around the state of Georgia, the Southeast, will be able to utilize some of the information that she has for us tonight in their own quest for reparations. So, Rodney, without further ado, hey, man, let's get this thing on.
Rodney, man, it is a pleasure. This is historic in my mind. Dr. Sims-Alvarado, I was a guest on this show talking about Tulsa, Greenwood, reparations. Well, my first introduction to him 2 years ago.
And now you're a co-host.
Yeah, I'm a co-host. But I couldn't have a better guest than we have today. We have Dr. Karcheik Sims-Alvarado, historian, professor of Africana Studies, and the chairperson of the Fulton County Reparations Task Force. Full disclosure, I am a member. I got appointed about a year and a half ago from vice chair of the County Commission, Khadijah Abdul Rahman. So welcome. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you from? How you get involved in this kind of work? I'm impressed.
Well, I'm originally from Admore, Alabama. It's a small little town in Alabama. So deep down in the South, it's actually on the Alabama-Florida borderline. So very rural. And my whole experience of growing up in Alabama has really shaped the study. A lot of the questions that I raise really stems from my childhood and me asking questions to myself and people in the community years ago. I think that maybe if I was born in a different place, the study may not have actually come out the way that it did because I lived in a community where people were so marginalized, so disenfranchised. And I'm not talking about in regards to voting, but just having access to resources. And so, and being a product, of the 70s, I'm telling my age now. And
you were a young kid then.
I'm a young kid, And so yeah, but that's where I come from. I came here to go to school at Clark Atlanta University, graduated from there twice, undergrad, grad. Then I got my my PhD in history from Georgia State University. Wanted to go to school there because at the time that I enrolled, there had only been one person of color, a Black woman, who actually received a PhD in history from Georgia State. I wanted to be number 2. It's the only time I wanted to be second. But when I got there, there were about 7 other Black folks there, and we were all asking each other, what did you check for the race box? How did you get in, right? And so I was part of a cohort of Black students in the doctoral program, and each one of us were coming out one semester after the other. When I left there, I received a fellowship. I received a postdoc fellowship at Harvard University, the Du Bois Fellowship. Left from there, came back to Atlanta, started doing some work and got involved in a whole bunch of other things and was teaching. And then just recently, I got another degree from Harvard when I got a master's degree in
Okay.
museum studies. And
Museum studies. Okay.
yeah, in museum studies. So I do work in museum studies, in addition to being a historian and doing research is my superpower.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And so it's all the things that I love doing. People actually get a chance to see that within the study, but research methodology is my superpower. And so I came to, I began thinking about reparations, always been an advocate of it. When people first started hearing about reparations, it was kind of like an exotic group of
Right.
people that were involved in
Right.
it, and you were like, I don't know who these people are. And so one of the things I really wanted to do was to really bring some credibility to it, some legitimacy, and show that harm can actually be measured. And I had been looking at like other studies where people just kind of like randomly like making up numbers, and it's like, where are they
Okay.
getting these? Where
Yeah.
are they getting these
Yeah.
numbers from,
Right.
right? And so for me, I really wanted to challenge myself as an academic, to be able to see if we can actually measure harm. And I'm
Okay.
happy to say that I can do that.
Ooh, go
And I
girl.
got different ways of doing it.
Oh, all
So
right.
before I came onto the task force, I was already thinking in my mind
Okay.
about it. And so when the task force was created in 2021, God, how long it's been. I thought it was
Okay.
2 years. It's been 4 years. 4 years. I think maybe, yeah, 4 years that I think it started in, I think it passed in April. It was introduced by Commissioner Marvin Arrington, I believe in April of
Okay.
2021, and it was
Okay.
co-authored by Natalie Hall. It was
Right.
actually supported. The fourth vote actually came from, the fourth vote actually came from Chairman Rob Pitts. And he wanted to make sure that it did not drop it did not, that it passed. And so he gave the fourth vote in
Wow.
order for it to happen. And so it took a while in order to get started. I think it took like about 6 months before we even began to meet. The idea for the task force, I have to give credit where credit is due. The brainchild really behind it is our co-chair, is our vice chair rather, Marcus Coleman.
The famous
And
Marcus Coleman.
yes,
The
yes. And
Marcus Coleman.
so, yes. And so I first heard about Vice Chairman Coleman, I believe it was around 2019. And I think there was like a flyer that circulated. And I didn't know him at the time, but I was like, okay, who's doing this? Who's brave enough to do it, or even talk about it?
Right.
Because,
Right.
reparations was kind of like this thing that you didn't
Taboo.
talk about. And like I said, it was kind of like an exotic group of people, that was talking about this. And it wasn't until like October before we actually met. There was like four people who were appointed, and you really couldn't do much with that. If one person was missing out of the meeting, you couldn't do much, right? So then finally, we asked that we have at least two commissioners to appoint individuals because we only had appointees from four commissioners.
Are they
Yeah.
appointed?
No,
Gotcha.
they did not. No, they did
Right.
not.
Right. I get the
And so
picture.
now we have 11 people.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So, look,
Well,
Dr. Sims Alvarado, what we'll do first before we get into our conversation on the work that you and the entire board has been doing on this most important work is I would like for you to provide an update on the task force's current progress and the timeline for presenting its final recommendations to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Well, in regards to where we are now,
right.
like I said, it's been 4 years of doing this work.
Right.
It took a long way to get there, and maybe your questions will allow me to be able to, to expand upon how we got to this point. But we're now at the tail end of the study. and we're now in the editing phase of it. We foresee uh, the study. We thought that it was going to be about 250 pages, but I think now we may be at 500 or 600. And we could really go even longer. And my husband said, please put a bow on it. Please just you can go on and on with this, right? And so we hoped that we can present our findings in late November or early December to the commissioners.
Okay, great. Rodney, let's you can start with the first conversation piece, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, what was the actual directive from the county commission for the task force?
So if you were to look at our bylaws, you can actually see what the recommendations were. So it clearly stated that we were to perform research and to do an investigation on reparations as it relates to slavery. If you really were to look at slavery and what it is, what it was, and what it is today, you're really talking about the exploitation of labor, captivity. People are still held in bondage today. So you can really stretch that definition. But in regards to what Black people experienced during the years of slavery, you also have to take into consideration what freed Blacks actually experienced, what happened during the aftermath of slavery. So that allowed us to be able to get into the era of Jim Crow as well. So the span of the study really begins in 1853 when Fulton County was first established.
Right.
So we're really only looking at like 11 years worth of slavery, compared to like, you know, Chatham County, you're talking about over 150 years worth of slavery, and then you get into Jim Crow segregation, and then it's the aftermath, the Jim Crow, the whole crack cocaine era and all of that, which is an era that people really need to explore, and mass incarceration during this time period. But we don't go that far. We really bring it up really kind of like to the close of Jim Crow segregation. So that's the time period that we're looking at from 1753 all the way up to Jim Crow segregation. We do get into like the 80s and 90s when we start looking at current health and human services that we can expand and start looking at during the time of the AIDS epidemic, in Fulton County. So we can stretch it, but so that's the time period in which we're looking at. And I forgot your other question.
Well, you talked about the mission and where we are. So,
Oh, and
county,
no,
go ahead.
yes, 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 yes. You just brought me back to this. This is so important. Sorry for interrupting you, but
No,
yes,
go
this is
ahead.
a very important point. So I think that we are the very first county
Right.
led task force in the entire United States.
Yes.
And we're the only task force in the United States that's actually been established in the former Confederacy.
Oh,
Yes. So when we start looking at the other studies that mention slavery, this particular study actually examines slavery and looking at documents that is reflective of that time period, and you're looking at a region, a county that had a slave institution and was dependent upon slavery, and then the aftermath of that. And so that's unlike the other studies. And I think what was confusing for a lot of people when they first start coming to our meetings is that um, they wanted to advocate, they wanted to make the national argument. What is different about this study and this task force and what we were charged with, which is, I think, the question that you were asking, Mr. Littles, is that we have been tasked to examine Fulton County's role and the harm they cause to Black residents of Fulton County.
there you go. There you go. So you mentioned the national versus local. As a professor in this area and historian, why is it most important to look at the local level versus trying to determine a national, repair program?
Thank you for asking that question. So you have several scholars that have made the argument of why one should actually try to make the national argument. Okay, you have someone like William Darity, who actually had the Black reparations study. I think he had like 2 studies that actually came out, and it was himself and a number of contributors that began making the argument for reparations from a national level. You have California that began to say that they're trying to make the argument on the state level. But the reason why the county is so important is that all Black people can have been harmed at the very local level
That's right.
by local government. And what is important about this study, so when you begin to look at Fulton County's the harm caused by Fulton County and all county government, your first point of contact that you have in regards to experiencing disenfranchisement, not receiving public services that residents paid for out of their pocket and being denied. That has been experienced by every single Black resident in a county in the United States. And you see the greatest harm really on the local level. And we're able to show that. This study actually allows one to really can be used as a blueprint. And all studies, they say that, right? You
Mm-mm.
know, we all can be a
Gotcha.
blueprint.
Right.
No, this is
This
really the
is the
blueprint.
blueprint.
Really a blueprint.
This is the
Exactly.
blueprint. And I'm gonna brag. I think that this is possibly the most comprehensive study on reparations.
Yeah.
And the different ways that we go about showing harm, the different ways of answering the question. And we probably have had the most challenges, the greatest challenge in accessing that information, but we did it.
Excellent point, Rodney. You hear that?
Yeah, you
Had
know what, Rodney, that is why when we open this thing up, is when I said that people should take this and look at this all over the Southeast. This is what I was talking about right here, because it is truly the blueprint. But I have so many things to talk about with research and findings, which I may come back to. But what I want to do, since we're already kind of open it up, is jump a little bit into the recommendations and repair. And so my next question would be, can you share the main components of the harm report and the proposed repair report that the task force has been working on?
Now, I don't want to give away all my jewels.
Oh,
Okay.
this is an
Um,
exclusive, Rodney.
okay.
let's just say that the questions that you are asking the $1 trillion question. I'm gonna put that right there.
All right.
Okay. And so harm occurred in so many different ways. Um, and let's just say that I have been able to calculate harm. Mr. Littles knows this down to the penny. I have a 60-step mathematical theorem that I created. It's called the dual lens hidden disparity theorem.
Come again. Repeat that for the people in the back.
Yes. It's
And some of the
called
people in the front.
Right.
It's called the dual lens hidden disparity theorem. So you're looking at it in 2 ways. Okay. So dual lens. So I am exposing the harm that was hidden in plain sight, and I'm going to measure the harm. Okay. And it was a 60-step process to get to the answer, really using a combination of like simple mathematics. And then once you get those findings, you look at the harm and then you measure the harm by compound interest. And so I want to be able to teach people those formulas, which I actually lay out in the study, which is why the study is so long. And so that's one thing, okay, is being able to show the harm. The other thing is, and here's the thing is that people have been harmed by things that's in plain sight, and we've been so caught up in the routine of doing it that it just becomes normal for us.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing too is that the ways in which that we've been harmed, it creates an illusion of fairness. And I don't want to get
Mm,
into all of the details. It's the
uh-huh.
illusion of fairness. And that's what the theorem
Okay.
does, is that it exposes, it allows you to be able to see these things. And there was like a sophisticated method of hiding the content in plain sight. But in order to get to the answer of like where these inequities or disparities that were listed in these annual reports, like they put it in your face, right? And they say,
Okay.
oh, this, but it was very sophisticated in which the problem, it was very sophisticated in the way in which money was actually extracted from Black people and then presented to us in plain sight.
Okay.
And then, but I'm trying not to give it away. I wish I could. Um, but then but once you see the findings, you say, oh, we knew that, but you just don't know to what degree in which
Okay.
you've been harmed. And
Gotcha.
the harm is so astronomical, like you just can't, like you can believe it, but you can't believe it. So
Right.
that's one thing. I will share a little something with you, like with our study. So we're examining property taxes. That's one.
Okay.
Um, those are things that all Black people have to deal with on the county level, right? You're paying for property taxes. And even if you don't own the property, you're renting property, and the property taxes is still calculated in your rent.
The
So
right payment. Yeah.
everybody who's an adult, they're contributing towards they're paying revenue to the county.
Right.
Now, the challenging part is that you don't receive the resources, the same resources as a specific group of people who always seem to have access to the best and the greatest amount of resources. Whereas with Black people, they actually receive either inferior or no public services. And they deal with this so much that it's just, they begin to accept it. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. And then we begin to look at um, poll tax, the history
Mm,
of the poll tax, not as it relates to voting, but the history of poll tax.
okay.
So there was from the moment of Black people's arrival, to North America under the British system. The poll tax is really a head tax, and there was a
Oh,
tax placed on Black people. And then when you move forward, the poll tax under freed Blacks, and I can share this with you. I've mentioned it before in a few meetings, that Black men and women were taxed at a much higher degree than white men between the ages of 21 and 60, whereas white men prior to the Civil War were paying 25 cents on a poll tax. So that's the head tax, right? For every person that's here, you have to pay a tax. Whereas with free Black people, both men and women, had to pay $5, had to pay $5.
it's a huge
So there's
disparity.
the poll tax.
Yes.
And then the poll tax become to mean something else
Right.
for Black people afterwards. So we look at that.
Interesting.
And so in regards to voting, the very first, when we think about voting, we think about like the ways in which we could be disenfranchised, with the Voting Rights Act have to be renewed.
Right.
And so,
Should be
but
permanent.
should be permanent, right? But your first point of contact with voting occurs at the county level.
True. They run the polls. Yeah. And the
Yes.
elections.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And the poll watchers, and not the poll watchers, but the person who allows you to register to vote holds the power, really, to
Yes.
determine whether or not you're going to be able to vote.
Board of
Correct.
Elections.
And
Yep.
all
Yep.
Black people experience that. So there are counties that there are county employees who served as the gatekeepers of suffrage. And that happens at the local level. So everything I'm talking about occurs at the local level, right?
Mhm.
And then when you begin into looking at healthcare, you have great health disparities because you don't have the same amount or the same quality of health clinics in your neighborhood maybe as other communities, right? And I'm not just going to say amongst whites, but it's really amongst a certain specific group of whites, okay?
Mhm.
And then and what has happened is that when you look at Fulton County, is that Black people had to not only pay taxes for these county resources, but they had to reach in their pockets and create their own hospitals and health clinics, and so they're paying twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And so when you have an epidemic to occur over time, whether it was the Spanish flu or tuberculosis or polio or the AIDS epidemic or COVID, then you really begin to see like its impact. And it's like that, in every county in the United States. Then you get into like infrastructure, sewer systems, um, where some counties have only one system. They don't have the system for, if you look at if you were to look at a map of Fulton County and see like the sewer systems, like there are some communities that's not connected to the
Right.
sewer system. And some may only have
Right.
one as opposed
Yep.
to one for stormwater. And
I see what you're
so,
saying. Yeah.
Yep.
so it's the infrastructure.
The
So
infrastructure
even
and
the
very.
infrastructure, like the things you don't even see under the ground
Yep.
that may
Right.
have had a Jim Crow design. So the county was built literally by Black people. This study has changed my whole perspective about slavery. And I'm sorry, I'm not taking a
How
break to
so?
allow you to ask questions,
How so?
but
No, 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 no. We
so
get it. How so? Tell us how.
That's
Tell
what
us
we
how. That's a
wanted.
very
okay.
good point. Yeah.
So it's so funny because there's an illustration I just shared with someone who's on my study. I mean, that's part of the study, and I had a silhouette of some men working on the railroad, and the person said, "I'm confused. This makes me think about convict labor, which we actually studied." And I said, "What we have to remember about Fulton County." Fulton County is not Gone with the Wind. This is not Terra. This is not Terra. The county was built around the railroad. The railroad was the plantation.
Correct.
And so Black people built the railroads, the gravel that we see on railroad tracks. I'm not sure if you all have ever walked close to railroad tracks. I'm,
Yes,
I'm from
ma'am.
Alabama. I used to cross one every day walking all the way to Florida. But anyways, whole nother story. And so, you see these broken pieces of gravel, but
Mhm.
that gravel was actually beaten by convict laborers. So years ago, it would have been beaten by enslaved
Yeah.
people. But then when you think about like how the rails are made, where is the iron ore coming from? It's going to come from Alabama, and then it's going to be shipped here by the railroads, right?
Yep.
And then, but someone has to melt that iron. That iron has to be poured. That iron has to be shaped. The rails have to be twisted and turned. Spikes have to go into the ground. Even before all that, somebody has to clear the road. How do
Right.
we think that was even made? So it was actually created by young young teenagers and young men. And you would see like these ads in newspapers that said Negroes for hire. This is what has changed my perception, is that you have people slave on our list of slaveholders, which is a total of like about 160 pages of
Wow.
names of slaveholders, that font size 10, single space, and
Wow.
and
That's
we have the names
specific.
of every single slaveholder for Fulton County. And so you would see that one in every three slaveholder, 30% of them, did not own land, did
Oh,
not own a home, but they owned
wow.
slaves,
That was
which
their
means
asset.
that was 100% of their assets came
Yep.
from enslaving individuals, and they leased those individuals out to the county to build the county
Oh.
infrastructure.
Oh.
So Black people built the county, the bricks for the courthouse, the roads, the everything, right?
Yep.
And then there is a chapter that focuses on the taxation on enslaved people.
Okay.
So the county would generate money from black people's value, that their body as a commodity, the labor that they produce, the services that they provide, the raw and the manufactured goods that they produce, and the income that they generate for the county, and the income that they generate for the slave owner and for the local economy that the state also benefited from.
You know what, Rodney? To close out my $1 trillion question, I'm only gonna ask $1 billion questions going forward.
Right, exactly.
But
And I
what I
have
do,
$1 billion answers.
well, your answer's probably gonna be back $1 trillion. My questions will probably be $1 billion. But what I want to close it out with, Rodney, with that piece is that, well, number one, Rodney, you know what it reminds me of? You know how, like, I think on the last episode, when I talked about how one of the first things that was traded on Wall Street were black bodies?
That's right. That's
There we
right.
go,
That's
right?
why they call it Wall Street.
That's exactly, you know what I'm saying? And then what she talked about just then, it takes away from that argument that many want to use, which is that, well, they were chain gangs, right? They were and prison is legal for doing slave work in America, right? That takes that away, that it wasn't just the chain gangs. Now, we know that you threw them on those chain gangs to bust up those rocks on those railroads, but however, it was way more than chain gangs. The people were leased out. So I love that piece. It takes away many of the arguments. And the last thing I want to say is that if we can believe, we say all the time nowadays that poverty is expensive, right? We say it all the time. If you are poor, you spend way more money than people who are not poor. If we can believe that poverty today is expensive, then why is it so hard to believe that slavery is very, very, very expensive? So
I got one even better for you.
Mm-hmm.
Racism is expensive.
God, yes.
It's expensive. I can show you. Okay, I'm going to give you one little, well, I don't want to give this away because I actually calculated this today.
Give it to us.
It's so expensive. Yeah. And it's going to be, and the repair is going to be expensive.
Yes.
And there were these, I mean, this was, reconstruction could have allowed for the harm to be repaired. And the failure of that, unfortunately, has caused the county, local government, federal government, a lot of money. And I'm just giving you one example. Okay. Right. So if you're going to practice Jim Crow segregation, now you got to have two things. Even if one is unequal, you still got to spend for two things. We have in our study, I can share this with you. We have an article that we wrote about libraries and how with the libraries having segregated facilities was costly. And it was the white librarians that began to advocate for Blacks to be able to have access to libraries too, because one, it was putting a strain on the physical building. And you have all these residents trying to use this one facility, and it's going to cost it's going to put a strain not only on the building, but on staff, on the overhead, on the learning material, that you're going to have to replace it. And in our study, we see that when libraries become integrated, now you don't have, half of the Black, the whole Black population, which is almost half of the county. Well, actually during this time, it was a third of the county using one tiny little branch. Once it became integrated and people can go wherever they want to, you actually began to see that it was less of a strain and less of a financial burden on county's infrastructure. And what we saw from that is that racism is expensive. But then, it's all the things that you have to do in order to try to police people is expensive. Trying to police them, denying them rights, all of that is expensive. But we can actually see that it's expensive, but also failing to do the repair is extremely expensive. And I calculated up those numbers today, and I'm just going to give you this. For every dollar that the county stole from Black people, whether it is labor, taxes, or what have you, the repair would be about $7,500.
Wow.
For every dollar spent because of racism.
Wow. And I'm so glad you used the word stole.
I'm stolen.
Mm-hmm. Rodney?
Oof, God. Well, without giving up any insider information that I may have or may not have, let me ask you a question, because the study did take some time, and you had time limits on being able to get access to certain information that would really bolster the quality of the study, if you will. Can you tell us what obstacles did you run into trying to get the data that would have been most helpful to expediting and getting to the bottom line?
Yes. And let's just say when Mr. Littles, when you say, "Ooh," I thought about every time I gave you something to read. I knew that I did something right based on your expression. When you said, "Woo," each time I said, "Yes." Okay. So, but to answer your question, it was extremely challenging to do this study because of our inability to have access to county uh, data. So, let me give you an example. So, we were trying in the beginning to try to get the names of the people who were harmed in the county. We're trying to find the names of people who were enslaved. And one way of being able to find that, one source is actually through the probate records. Now, in the probate records is where you're going
Yeah,
to have, slaveholders who have passed on and passed individuals on, and they name, those who they're going to pass their inheritance on to their children. So you will find names there. The other way that you will find names is it's actually looking at auctions
right, right,
and deed, deed records.
right.
But we had a challenge in getting access to that information. And I actually had the same challenge that W.E.B. Du Bois experienced when he
Yeah,
was trying to compile this. He was preparing for this exhibition that was going to be in Paris in 1900. And he wanted to compile like this empirical data or this quantitative data that allowed him to do these infographic charts. And what he was trying to do was that he did this in Philadelphia. He hoped to do it in Atlanta. Ran up against these challenges, just like I did, and having access to the information. He couldn't have access to the libraries, couldn't have access to the county resources. And so what he wound up doing was that he wound up putting together this data to look at 35 years of African American accomplishments by doing a case study and looking at Georgia.
mhm,
Well, lo and behold, I knew that data. I knew about his infographic charts. So when I could not get access to the information about the enslaved, I began to think, well, where could I find the names of the slaveholders? In the past, historians have always looked at one particular source, the census. And there was a slave schedule for 1850 and 1860. Well, Fulton County wasn't established to 1853, so I can't use the data from 1850 because that's DeKalb County. So the only
uh,
thing I would have to rely on is the names of the slaveholders from 1860. That's just going to give me 1 year out of 11. So I had to say to myself, I'm going to find these names. And then it hit me. I said, I know where they exist because I had looked at this before, the property tax records.
Mm.
And this is why this study is so important. Um, Fulton County, having access to Fulton County records is extremely challenging. But in some smaller towns, they have some of the best records, better record
mm,
keeping.
right,
So that information, and the county has to ask itself, why isn't this information, public information, accessible to the public? So
right.
what I did was that I began looking at where these records could exist. So they exist within the National Archives. And
Okay,
so we began to manually download all these records from the National Archives that list all the property records. And we had to literally like transcribe the names.
right.
Okay, for every single year of every slaveholder. That information really served as the foundation for our study because now
Yes,
we could actually see the value of the enslaved, the
yes,
quantity of the
yes,
slave, the
yes,
percentage of the enslaved value,
yes,
the value of Black lives compared to the total wealth of slaveholders, compared to the total wealth
right.
of the county, and the percentage of the county's dependency on taxation on the enslaved. And that paid for county resources that even non-slaveholders benefited from.
Benefit from, right.
So when people say, well, I didn't own slaves,
No,
no, but the infrastructure, the services that you benefited from came from taxation on the enslaved, and the taxation on the enslaved allowed for all taxpayers to receive a discount on their land and on their homes and everything else because the difference would be made up with the taxes accumulated from the value of enslaved people. And so, and as a matter of fact, the value of the enslaved was so important that the value of enslaved people were more than the value of land by 127%. I can't give you that
Yo,
number.
Rodney,
And then,
did you hear that?
yeah,
127%.
yeah, 127%. And it's the first column. It's so important to the state that in
Yes.
every county, it's the very first column where
Oh,
where taxes or property is listed. Is that important? Is the
got
very
it.
first column.
Got it.
And so we were able to look at that and to bring it full circle with Du Bois as we are doing it. I said, I'm looking at the same data that Du Bois looked at, except
Whoa.
he gave up on the idea of trying to measure all this stuff. He was like,
Right.
I'm out.
But he
And
didn't have a
because
Dr. Sims-Alvarado
he
around.
did not have one. He did not have one. So it was great to be able to pick up that work
Right.
and to do what I believe that he wanted to achieve, but it was just too
Okay.
challenging. And you
Right.
see him
Right.
mention here and there, like in some of his work, about how Black people pay for, they pay property taxes, but receive little to no county services. And
Services.
that is for Black people all over the United States.
So that's not new. That's a continual problem we have. Wow.
Wow. I was going to ask you about the initial $250,000 budget that the commission
Yes, the
gave you guys,
$250,000.
but
Yes. Yes. That was appropriated. What year was that appropriated?
That was in, oh gosh, let me get it right. Was it December of 2023, I
3. I think
believe.
so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was easier to make the case for it than it was to receive the
Oh,
funding.
Lord. So explain that.
Yes, yes, yes. When the task force was created, no one gave us a blueprint on how
Right.
to do this at all.
Right.
And so we had to figure it out on our own. So we
Right.
had to um create the bylaws. We had to create some
Right.
type of, uh um framework for like how we're going to govern ourselves and
Okay.
all of that, but
Okay.
no one gave us a blueprint whatsoever.
Wow. Wow.
So we had to figure it out on our own. So one of the things that we did as a way to show that what we were doing, so we created an end of the year report.
Okay.
And I understood that budgets are determined in November, December, and January.
True. True.
So I seized the opportunity. So we presented our findings at the end of the report, and I said, let me let them know that we're serious. So I
Gotcha.
said, let me do a test and see if they're going to give us anything.
Right.
So I recommend that we do $250,000. And the reason why I asked for that amount because there was another task force that were given $250,000 for a feasibility study. And
Right.
I won't tell you what the feasibility study was because I don't want to get people upset. But let's just say that was my test. We were given the money. We only spent $210,000 of that money because we said that 40,000 of it would be used in order to do town halls and to do a feasibility study. So
Okay.
the thing about the study is that it has two parts. So the first thing you want to do is to show the harm.
Right.
Okay. That's what this study is. It's the harm. So when people say,
Right.
well, what are the recommendations? What are Black people going to receive? We can't say that yet. The
Right.
first thing you have to do is to show the harm. Now,
Right.
whoa, gosh, what's the governor's name from Massachusetts who just recently said, we don't need a study. Let's get it. He said, I
Oh,
don't need
wow.
to see any more
Right.
studies.
Wow.
And he said that
Wow.
his wife was even on a task force for Massachusetts. He
Oh,
was like, I
wow.
don't need any more studies. I get it. We know that Black people have been harmed. Let's get something done, right? I mean,
Right.
that's wonderful. I love that.
Yes.
But you're going to shortchange yourself. And
Okay.
by not showing the degree in which Black people have been harmed and what is rightfully due to Black people. So you just may just randomly say, black people are entitled to, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw this out here, $100,000, and I'm not talking about from the county level. I'm just saying somebody may say, I think it was like Bob Johnson from BET who said it needs to be 350 something $1,000. And I was like, where did he get those numbers from? Even Sandy Darity in the reparations study came up with that about that same amount. And I don't know how that can be. And looking at the numbers that I'm seeing and the degree in which Black people have been harmed, right?
Okay.
But you
Okay.
deprive yourself of that opportunity to really measure, to
Right.
identify the harm and to measure it. So the first part
Right.
of what
Right.
we're doing in this task force is actually identifying the harms
Good.
caused to Black people and 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 what is the debt that is owed. And then the second part, which is the feasibility study, and really kind of like the second phase of what this task force would be
Mm-hmm.
charged with, is the repair. So there's the harm report, and then the feasibility study would be the repair report. How do
Got
you
it.
make recommendations that are sound, that are reasonable? And I'm not talking about Black people acquiescing. I'm not talking about that. Okay.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But you can show that is feasible to do and it's the right thing to do. Not, and I'm not just talking about it's morally right,
Right.
but it really shows like you're talking about over 100 years worth of harm and neglect. And at the end of the day, the benefit is not just to Black people. It's not only for white people who want to atone, who need to atone, but it's beneficial for the county. We
Uh-huh.
all know that Black people have value.
Uh-huh.
Everything that Black people touch turns to gold. We can touch a rock and it has value. Black people mine for gold, it has value. Okay? Black people produce culture, it has value. Everything that Black people touch has value. Our body has value down to the cellular level. Our black
Melanin.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
our cells have value, okay?
Yes.
So the benefit is actually to the county. Because imagine if you took that money, okay, that the seed money that came from Black people to build the infrastructure for the county, to build the county courthouses, the jail, the health departments, the libraries, the salaries, and then taking money and even investing it, right? And letting that money accumulate wealth over time, accumulate interest, compound interest over time, right? That's seed money. Imagine if you invested that into people. The benefit is to the county. Who would not want to have county residents with the best health, okay? The
Right.
best education,
Right.
okay? Homes, okay? uh, e- Becoming entrepreneurs, all of those things. When a Black person owns land, owns property, they're going to pay property taxes, right? It's to the
Hello.
county's benefit.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
If Black people go to school and stay in Fulton County and become entrepreneurs and begin hiring people, the income from the wages, from owning the property, the everything is to the county's benefit. So why would you not want to have that type of revenue being generated from the county unless you want a particular group of people to continue to have economic domination and political domination over another group of people?
So you're
Ye-
making the case for racism being very expensive to the country.
Very expensive.
It's
Yep.
so expensive. It's so expensive. It's illogical and it's expensive.
Very.
So
You
it
know.
makes sense. It's
Mhm.
to do the right thing. It's cheaper. It's less. I'm gonna say cheaper, but it's much more. Actually, is you get a greater return on your investment
Yeah.
by investing in people, and that is what we need to convince the county to do, and to see and that is feasible to do.
Yeah.
It's feasible, it's the right thing to do, but it's feasible and it's beneficial.
It is amazing how they wanted to invest in us when we could be property, but not want to invest in us today that we can't be property. But I went out for a second. So Rodney, I appreciate, and you answered everything. that I was going to ask about, the money piece and about financial payoffs and all that. So thank you for that, Rodney, for keeping that going. I swear,
Yes,
I
sir.
think they got me hacked, man. I think the man got me, bro. I don't know what's going on with my stuff, but what I do want to, but what I thought about when you were talking was, and I don't know if you guys talked about this to close out this whole financial piece, Rodney, and I don't know whether you guys talked about this, Doc, in your research, is that it made me think about when you were talking about, they did all the medical studies and stuff on Black people, and it makes you wonder, with all those medical research and experiments that they did, white people benefited big time. Their lives were even, like if you were going to die at 45, but because because this research or this experiment was done on Black people, you may have lived another 25 years. It makes me wonder, even in the medical arena, just trying to even calculate the benefit financially of such a experiment, of all the experiments.
Yeah, exactly. And with I hope that this study will inspire people to begin looking at, not just what happened, at the local level or the
Right.
role of the government in all of this, but institutions, medical institutions,
Yes.
financial
Yes.
institutions, and how the nation, how the world really owes a debt to Black people. I mean, really, they really owe a debt to Black
The
people.
world,
The world.
not just the
I want to
country.
walk into a room and somebody bend the knee. Just, yes, man. Just clear the way, clear the way, clear the way.
The work you've
So
been
I
doing
mean,
so far, people should already be doing that. But anyway,
so many
I
times I want
digress.
to quit. I tell you,
Yeah.
you have to really thank my friends because there have been nights I have cried. I have sat on my balcony right here yelling and screaming, and they would say, "Don't quit. This is the closest we've ever gotten."
Please don't quit.
I got a closer on the financial side because I want
Okay.
our audience to understand that the members of the task force do not get paid. We don't get a stipend. We don't get travel money. We don't get food, nothing. And that the money that she talked about in the budget, tell us where that went.
So the money went towards the researchers, not me. Not some other task force members who gave up their time, their energy, multiple nights of listening to me. Mr. Littles has been like my therapist. I would call him.
He's been my therapist. So
He would just let me vent. And and so and you need people like that in
yeah.
your life, but the money went towards the researchers. So we had a project manager that really were responsible, creating the schedule, keeping everything together, all the logistical stuff really, and having the researchers to work on this project. We had one student, Christopher Smothers, that was a graduate from Clark Atlanta University. He's now completing like 2 degrees right now at the same time in Massachusetts in library science and history. He's about to get married. He's gonna do a whole bunch of wonderful things. He was one of the researchers that put it out there that the Pope is Black, which we knew anyway, but and
Mm,
so we had him on our team. We had another graduate student, Luther King, from Kennesaw State. He graduated just recently from graduate school, back in graduate school again to get another degree. And then we had Abyssinia Mulata, who actually is from Decatur, and she grew up in Decatur. She's living in Savannah right now. School at Kennesaw State. Also, the beautiful thing about them being in graduate school, that they were right next to the Georgia archives, and they were able to extract that information. Built these wonder tabular data sets. They are data scientists, and they
mhm.
gather all this data that without them, I swear this study would not have turned out the way that it did. That property tax data set is the foundation to everything that shaped this whole study. And I mean, who would ever thought about looking at some taxes
Right,
as a
right,
Exactly.
I
right.
mean the case for for reparations. So yeah, and then we had an economist, Miles, Stevens from Morehouse that actually worked on the study. Attorney Tanya Washington, and our project manager was Amanda. I'm sorry, I always say Amanda and Amber at the same time, but Amber Mungeon Davis, who was our project manager. We also had a couple of Monica Goins, also from Clark, Atlanta, that worked as a researcher as well. And then we had members of the task force that actually worked on this. Ann Hill Bond, who's done some work with the Equal Justice Institute. She wrote a piece on lynching. John Wright from the library, one of our senior librarians in the archives, who wrote like a 50-page piece on, I believe, the Klan.
Mm.
And when I say that he has names of elected officials and judges and sheriffs and everyone else you could think of that were members of the Ku Klux Klan and offsprings of the Klan, and he writes like a 50-page article on them, on convict labor, chain gangs. Amanda Ming writes about chain gangs. Dr. Amanda Ming, who is our secretary
Excuse me.
for
Oh,
the task force. She's also a professor at Georgia Tech. And so she wrote a piece also on health, and I hope I'm not leaving anyone else out. If I
I know.
have,
Sorry about
forgive
that. Yeah.
me. Yeah.
It's going
Yeah.
to always
Our
be one
close.
person that you leave out, so don't even
Yeah,
don't even
exactly,
worry about it.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So, but yeah, but so the money went towards the three researchers, and
yeah,
two other readers, and the project manager, and the rest of us. We were grinding. We were
yeah.
grinding. Mr. Little served as a reader. Um, like I said, every time he said "woo," I said yes.
She put me on the fiscal committee too.
Yeah.
She had me on the
Yes, that's
fiscal
right.
committee.
That's right. That's right. So Mr. Little's are responsible for, overseeing, our financial reports, and that was a challenge. Just being
Uh,
able to get the money because, like I said, I mean, this had never been done before. And for people who want to do this in other counties, and unless, local government sets it up for you to be able to receive the funds, you have to have a fiscal agent to be able to do it. And we were
right.
figuring these things out along the way. And so we were able, and part of that slowed up the process. And as a matter of fact, this month actually marks 4 years. I could have gotten a whole
Wow.
nother degree.
I know.
That would have
I
been
know. I know. I know.
easier.
4 more years, right?
Yes,
Right.
this task force study is probably the most challenging thing that I ever had to write.
Well, you will go down in history as a pioneer in this effort that folks have been looking at for a very long time and talking about. So we really appreciate your leadership and the time
Thank
that you
you.
shared with us this evening. Is it, Ronnie, you want to close her out? Anything you want to leave with us, Dot, before we close out?
Oh no, I'm down to 2 more pages that I hope to complete.
Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
really trying to like just put a bow on it, but I keep thinking about new things. But I'm just gonna be like, okay, for the next person, for the next person.
For the next person, I got you. So, in closing, what are the next steps and where would the task force go from here? And what would be the big assignment to close out the work that was done? Because the findings is one thing, but what's the next step and where we go from here?
Yes, so people will learn about our findings in November, either late November, at the latest, early December. And then we plan to provide the study to the public, either in the form of a PDF. It's our goal to actually to print it out and actually gift people with the study. We hope that with the PDF, we can do some really exciting things with it, animate some of the graphs.
Oh,
There may be
good.
some audio. I'm
Okay.
hoping that that we can with the PDF we can always add to it, but
Right.
I hope to add music to it,
Okay.
audio to it. But
Okay.
I probably need to take a little break
I know,
before
I
I
know.
start doing that again. My creative side gets the best of me.
I know
To
that's right.
provide some balance to all, like, all the quantitative stuff, all the numbers. But so we hope to gift people to distribute physical copies of the study, and to have town halls and to share that information with the public. We hope that some of our senior members who experienced the greatest harm in Fulton County, that experienced Jim Crow, and they could testify.
Right.
We're hoping that that could happen. And then we, as a task force, we share that information with the public. We get feedback from them. We digest it a little while, and then we begin strategizing and thinking about ways in which the county can actually repair the harm. And we look at how those goals, those demands, those recommendations can be achieved, and we can show that it's feasible to do and
And
that is
that's where the
beneficial to the county.
okay. And that's where the feasibility study, the
That's
last phase.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
that's the last phase. That's the
Okay.
last phase of it. So we also
Gotcha.
hope that in addition to providing like a blueprint for the study, also a blueprint of how you go about doing this. And
Okay.
our supporters have expanded. And,
Okay. Okay.
I mean, we got academic institutions that want to, provide support, legal institutions, and who are interested in doing the work, and everyone's not Black.
I went out for a minute again. I hope I'm not going to ask. I hope you didn't ask this question while I was gone for that second, and that is, what are the next steps for the Board of Commissioners if they? Did you already ask it, Rodney?
No.
Yeah,
The Board
okay.
of Commissioners.
For the
Not
Board of
Board of
Commissioners, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, that
Oh,
wasn't
not
asked.
for the Board of Commissioners. The next steps for the Board of Commissioners if they accept your findings, but also, what are the next steps if they reject or modify it?
They can't modify.
Oh, okay.
I can't modify.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm not concerned about the rejection.
Okay.
I know
Great
how to
answer.
deal with that. I
Great
won't
answer.
tell you how I will deal with
Yes,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I told you I was going to ask the $1 billion question. You was going to give the $1
Yes,
trillion
you
answer.
did. Yes, you did. Trying to get
I
to
already
it.
knew it.
You have to remember, I'm a strategist.
Yep.
And so, but what I hope for the commissioners is that when they receive it, I really hope they sit down and really read it with a clear mind. I want them to be able, really sit down and read it.
Right.
Eat with it, sit in the bed with it, take it to bed with you, take it to dinner with you, and really read it. So my strategy was kind of like a three-step approach. It was like a three-part model as we were writing. Is that you provide the data, the information, right? Hopefully it would change the consciousness, the thinking. They're thinking about reparations. Because, we had to do the same thing, for even for Black people who thought that we're never going to get reparations. It's not possible. Can't make the argument, why you need a study, or we just need to leave it alone. We don't need it, or, I just want somebody to say I'm sorry.
Give me a holiday.
Give you a holiday, right? So first you got to change the consciousness of people, So they have to take the information and digest it. Okay. How do you change the consciousness of people about reparations? The other step as we were writing is that how do you hit people here? So you hit them here, then you hit them here, right? Because you may in your mind say, okay, I know that this makes sense, but you have to have the courage and the conviction to do the right thing. Okay. And then the last thing, like I said, is head, heart. The last thing is feet. How do I move you to act?
With you to act.
You gotta do you gotta do the right thing. So I hope that when they read it, it raises their consciousness, changes their attitudes, and it moves them to act. And at the end of the day, I hope they look back and I hope they'll be on the side of right. But if they say no, this is just the beginning. Because when you look at all movements, you got to keep pounding at it. Okay. So if you look at the Revolutionary War, okay, getting people to understand they need to be free from British control, that took a while in order to do, right? But eventually, there's going to be a new generation that's going to emerge that's going to say, can't keep doing this.
Mhm.
We are not colonists. When you look at the abolitionist movement, okay, it took a concerted effort of both blacks and whites in order to get on the side of right. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened. The same thing with the civil rights movement, the same thing with reparations. And in 15, 20 years, this county is going to look different. This nation is going to look different. And we got to keep pounding away at it. So this is
Yeah.
just the beginning. So I'm just warming things up.
Thank you for that. You know, Rodney, we say on the Black Man's Roundtable all the time, the difference between a moment and a movement is a movement, sacrifices are made. A moment, you throw your fist up and you go inside and you play video games for the rest of the day. So
Right.
it's a movement. All right, Rodney. Well, look, if I don't have anything else really, so if you're ready to make sure people know how they can reach her and these wonderful books and stuff that she's been, it's up to you, brother, if you don't have
Yes.
anything.
Well, my historian, would you tell us about your author work?
Yes. So I have two books right now. The first one is actually no more so than the second one. The first one is called Atlanta and the Civil Rights Movement, 1844 to 1968. It's a pictorial history about Atlanta's involvement in the Civil Rights Movement, and it helps to answer the question of how Atlanta can be known as the epicenter. So I do that visually. Book actually became a 4-mile outdoor exhibition on the Atlanta Beltline. People may know that. Yeah,
Oh,
that's my work.
I didn't know
That's
that was your work.
that's
Okay.
my work. It became the
Go, girl.
longest,
Awesome.
yeah. It became the largest outdoor photography exhibition on civil rights in the entire world. So that's my work. And it was made accessible to the public over 2 years, and it was seen over 3 million people. And
Nice.
then while doing this study, I also wrote
Yes.
a book, and I didn't get a chance to even promote it, but I'm going to
Wow.
promote it here. I only had one book
Yes.
signing.
Let me see it.
So this is the second one that I didn't even get a chance to promote, that is called Georgia and the Power of the Vote. And
Nice.
so it looks at over 150 years of political activism in Georgia. And it answers the question of why Georgia continues to capture the nation's attention around the vote. And so I call it a scary book because voting in Georgia was scary.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, you'll be able to connect the dots to a lot of things. And you will learn that this whole thing of trying to disenfranchise people, it has an algorithm. If you look closely at it, you'll begin to connect some dots. And you said, I see what time it is. So just
Right.
like people can predict the stock market, you can also predict like when things are going to happen in this country, and you will learn that there are profiteers of racism.
That's why it's so expensive.
That's why it's so expensive. Profiteers. There are profiteers of poverty, profiteers of slavery, profiteers of racism. And the more you separate the races, it allows for one particular group to have control over all the resources.
And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
So check it out. It's a wonderful book. And you see, I
okay.
got my lovely sister on the cover. It says Jim Crow must go.
Gots to have a
What?
signed copy.
Yes.
So you can bring it
to.
back and we could talk about this book since I didn't get a
Yes.
chance. I made a
Absolutely.
We will.
sacrifice. I made a sacrifice
It's amazing.
with this reparations study in
That's
not promoting
amazing.
my own book.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you ever sleep during this time? I mean, come on.
No.
Good Lord.
But you know what, Rodney? I'm glad she
Okay.
pointed out that not only does history repeat itself, but it also rhymes. So
Yes, it does.
all you gotta do, just listen to the rhythm. Listen to the rhythm. It's coming. I
Yeah,
promise you.
you go. There you go.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
rhythm.
Mhm.
All right. All right.
So
Well,
look,
thank you
we
so much.
definitely.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you for having me.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we've been trying to do this for months, Rodney and I, and I'm just glad that, like I said, we were able to get it in before the end of the year, and so I think it's going to be one of our marquee episodes, Rodney, for the year.
I agree.
Especially,
I agree.
even one of the marquee specials, brother. I definitely see that happening. So, Rodney, I can close this thing out if you don't have anything else. If don't nobody have anything,
No,
good
I
to
just
go?
want to wish you good luck as you go forward in your work. And thank you very much for your leadership on the Fulton County Reparations Task Force. It's been a pleasure to serve under your leadership.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for holding me down, sir.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be a legacy, man, for generations to come. So definitely appreciate it. And with that, you can catch the Black Man's Roundtable podcast the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable with Rodney and Rodney the second Thursday of the month. And the Black Man's Roundtable Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.
Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.